Our lesson today is going to be about the social implications of IT. This means what things are right to do and wrong to do on the internet, as well as some various dangers and things that you need to be aware of to be successful while you're taking advantage of the internet. The author does a nice job on the chapter, and I encourage you to go ahead and read that if you haven't already. One of the first concepts he talks about is called crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing is an idea where you get a bunch of other folks to help you out, a crowd of people, if you will, to solve a problem or achieve a specific goal by getting lots of people to put in their resources. An example of that is Kickstarter, which is a funding platform that focuses on creative ideas or projects. If people have an idea that they want to launch off, it can be anybody, it doesn't have to be somebody special. They can start their own Kickstarter project, and as people browse through and look at the different projects, if they like it, they'll put money towards it. People can actually raise thousands and millions of dollars towards a new idea through Kickstarter. Another example would be the CD initiative, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They actually do research on that using radio telescope data, and you can join that effort as part of the crowd by downloading a program that installs on your computer and connects to the internet, and then small bits of radio telescope data are downloaded to your computer and analyzed. So you can also, that's one way you can be part of a larger solution. Interesting ideas. There are many different types of crowdsourcing initiatives out there. The author also talks about a concept called netiquette, which is a unique term talking about etiquette on the internet. There are a number of different rules for that, and we're just going to cover a few of them real quickly here. These come from a book that is called Netiquette by Virginia Shea. You can look that up and look at each of these, but the basic idea is to, be nice. Remember that, you're a human here, even though you're working over a computer network, and you really need to adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you follow in real life. Mostly that means don't be a jerk. Keep in mind where you are in cyberspace, because sometimes it's easy to get distracted and forget where you're at, and you might, respond to something inappropriately because you weren't paying attention to where you are. Also, do respect other people's time and bandwidth. Sending large, huge images via email is annoying. Some people actually pay for their bandwidth and don't really want your 8 megabit or 8 megabyte file picture of your dog. Rule number 5, this is kind of a good one. Make yourself look good online. You might as well. There's no reason not to, so do it. Rule 6, if you have expert knowledge, please be willing to share it. There are so many great bits of information out there on the internet that are available simply because someone was willing to share their knowledge. As a IT tech, it's very common to need to jump out onto the net and search some particular error message that you've not seen before. If someone has shared their experience out there and how they got around and fixed that problem, then you can look at it and have some way forward. So by all means, if you have knowledge, go ahead and share it. Number 7 talks about flame wars. That's a concept that pretty much goes along with any kind of a blog or, it used to be bulletin boards, that type of thing, where there's an ongoing discussion. Comments on blogs are often where you'll see this sort of thing. And there's a particular flame war means that things have gotten rather heated, the discussion, and out of control. And watch out for something called a troll. A troll is an individual who lurks along some of these forums and comment sections and puts in deliberate inflammatory content to start a flame war because they get a kick out of it. So watch out for those and don't prolong them. Just ignore them, even if it does get under your skin. Rule number 8, respect other people's privacy. Should kind of go without saying. And don't abuse your power, and be forgiving of other people's mistakes, because, hey, we all have been newbies at one time, and we all make mistakes. So mind your netiquette in this world of the internet. Let's talk a little bit about the concept of a firewall. A firewall is software, or it can be hardware, that is between you and the internet. And the purpose of it is to shield you from various things that are trying to damage you coming in from the internet. Could be a virus or a worm, or it could be somebody trying a remote access tool trying to gain control of your computer. Now, typically your router will have a firewall on it, as does your computer. Microsoft provides their own version of the firewall, which is turned on by default. If I take a look at the one that's on, now that's not what we want. Let's see. There it is. If we take a look at Windows Firewall on my computer here, I'm going to go over here to the advanced settings so we can see what's actually going on. You'll notice up here in the left-hand side, we deal with rules when we talk about a firewall. There are inbound rules for traffic coming in and outbound rules for traffic going out. Obviously, we tend to be mostly interested in the things that are coming in. So if I click on the inbound rules, we'll see a whole bunch of different rules that have been set up to handle specific applications, whether they're Buffalo, which is a network storage device, or CyberLink, which is a software application, Firefox, Java, McAfee. We have Microsoft application, Skype. I mean, there's just a ridiculous number of things that get put in here that you probably are not even aware of. It's possible to run through these things and look and see what's in here and see if there's anything suspicious looking. A lot of it is obviously a little bit hard to decipher. Here are the printer and file sharing rules. So inbound echo requests, that would be, for instance, a ping request coming inbound. This is allowed. Let me stretch this out just a little bit here. Here's some more McAfee, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft News. Now here's one, Microsoft News. This is enabled, yes. It is coming in from any remote address to any port, and it's application packages from Microsoft Bing News. Now, I happen to know what this is. It's something I've typically turned off, but on Windows 10, when you click the Start button down here, you get a window that has all these tiles over here, and you'll notice this news one, which I normally have disabled and gone, but I put it back on here for the example. You'll see that it's actually bringing in traffic from Microsoft website and cycling through this live tile. That is coming through because this rule, inbound, actually exists. If I were to disable it, I think we would find that this will stop. That live feed is now, well, potentially no longer coming in. It may take it a minute to actually realize that it's been cut off. It's probably got some cached information in here. But this is a way to control the traffic that's coming in and out of your computer, is through the firewall. So, and you can create additional rules as needed, but these are the inbound, outbound rules. As I was looking through, I did notice something here that I thought was suspicious looking. I have no idea what Candy Crush Saga is all about, and it's not something I voluntarily put on my computer. Application is coming in from king.com Candy Crush. I think we might go looking for that when I get done here and disable some of that. So this is a software firewall. Inbound rules, outbound rules, connection security rules, and also the ability to actually monitor the traffic as it's coming in if you choose to go through and look at that and set it up. It can actually be somewhat interesting if you are into that sort of thing. Well, let's get back to our presentation here. So that's a firewall. Another security thing that you'll want to be aware of is operating system updates. The bottom line for this is just do it. It used to be a time when we kind of avoided some of the updates, but with the tremendous amount of activity on the internet with people seeking out exploits for your operating system, no matter whether you're running Windows or Apple OS X or Linux or your phones, your Android or iOS updates, just do it. You'll be safer that way in the long run, and it's usually reasonably easy to do. If you don't, you're putting yourself open to the idea of viruses, Trojans, and zombies, among other nasty things that are out there. And we're going to take a look at that. Here we have a nice example of a Trojan horse over here on the right, and some zombies and a virus. So let's look at some of these different terms that you should be a little bit more aware of. You probably have heard them, but you might not know exactly what they are. Malware, which is an acronym for malicious software, some kind of software that contains code that is going to damage or perform otherwise unwanted actions on your computer system. So malware is kind of a grouping that includes viruses, worms, Trojans, and spyware. Typical that these things can be found on free demos that you might download from a web page. Free games or online services are great ways to get this stuff installed on your computer, and a lot of times you won't even know that you've done it. You just download it, install it, you're not paying attention. They might not even notice that there's something there, and next thing you know, you've got it on your computer. The viruses are probably the most well-known form of malware. These spread by infecting your computer after you download something, either through an email attachment or from some phishing website. It'll infect your computer and begin to replicate itself. It'll typically use your email address book to send itself out to all the people on your contact list. Worms are a little bit different. Worms typically don't do damage. They exist more to just replicate and spread as rapidly as possible and chew up CPU cycles on your computer so that things slow down and just basically become unusable. These aren't all that common, but they do still exist out there. Now, a Trojan horse or a Trojan is like the Greek Trojan horse. The idea is that something nefarious is packed inside something that looks legitimate. And they can be very dangerous because they provide, it's basically a program that gets installed on your computer system. One of the more common types of things would be a remote access tool that would get installed on your computer so that your computer could then be controlled as part of what they call a bot network, so that other hackers can use your computer to send denial of service type traffic or other types of bad things out through the network. So they would have control of your computer and actually be able to take information off of it and control it. For instance, collecting your personal and financial information without you knowing about it, which could be a bad thing. Spyware is another category, sometimes called adware. It's also designed to gather information stored on your computer without your knowledge and then send it off to different organizations. Well, some of it is legitimate advertising companies in particular, why it's called adware. pay for information that's captured by these types of programs. But there can be other types of nastiness involved in these things, like sending out passwords and other information that you don't want out to be revealed. One good way to notice if you've got one of these things on your system is you'll start to get these an increase in pop-up ads on your browser, and your browser will redirect to certain websites offering, ironically, ways to clean up spyware is one of the more common ones. So don't get tricked by that. Uh, I've been most successful using programs from Lavasoft, their AdAware program, as well as something called Combo Fix from bleepingcomputer.com, if I remember that URL correctly. Those have been pretty successful for eradicating spyware and adware. Now, phishing, which we do obviously a lot of here in the Bitterroot, is very much the same thing as trying to catch a fish, only the internet criminals are trying to catch you, your information. So they're phishing, trying to get you to take the bait. And the best way to protect yourself from this is learning how to recognize the bait. Usually these kind of things come as emails. They appear to look like they're coming from a legitimate organization, and they're always asking for your personal information. Maybe not on the initial bait. Typically that stuff comes on the second one, but don't fall prey to this kind of a thing. And the way that it works is they have to get you to go from the email to some particular website. And they always tell you to click on a link that will take you to a site where then they will request your personal information. Now, you know that a legitimate organization is not going to do this these days. They've all gotten smart enough to know that this is a trick, so they don't go about it that way. Let's take a quick look here at an example. Here is one that came to me purporting to be from Apple, saying that they detected an unauthorized sign-in on my Apple ID and that they've locked my account. So typically, if this was something that you utilized a lot, you might tend to go, oh my gosh, and you want to unlock your account so that you'll have access to it. So they tell you here, in order to unlock your Apple ID account, click here. Well, this is where you go off to their website and they start to try and collect your information. One of the quick ways to do this, and by the way, these things will often look quite legitimate. Here's the real no kidding privacy statement from Apple, and maybe their logo up here. But the way to know whether this is for real or not, aside from misspellings like please confirm your Apple account, if you hover your mouse pointer over the link, then down here in the lower left corner of your email client, whatever it is that you're using, the actual URL for this link will appear, and you'll be able to analyze it. Now, if you recall, this obviously is a rather long thing, but if you remember from our discussion on how domains work, you would expect, this is the bait, support.apple.com, so it looks kind of legitimate, but realistically, if it was from apple.com, there would be a slash right here, separating the domain from the actual file path, and that is not the case here. So what we have is a domain. Remember we talked about primary and secondary and tertiary. Well, this must be up into the teens. It's support.apple.com blah 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 all the way down to finally here we have the actual domain. EU, someplace in Europe presumably, -web0 blah blah.com slash and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's the actual domain. So look for where that slash starts because that tells you where the real domain is. And then you can make an intelligent decision and in this case say, no thanks. Now social engineering is a very fascinating concept here. It's been around for a very long time. And it used to go by the name of a con man who would be able to con people out of their money. Well, today conning people has become a little bit more of an art through the internet or through different technologies in general, but it's basically the art of manipulating people so that they give up information that they're not supposed to. In our case, it could be a lot of different things, but typically, like phishing, they're trying to trick you into handing out passwords or bank information or to access computer systems to secretly, steal stuff. Now, I have put a Word document up on the Moodle that I would love for you to read through. It's a beautiful example of how social engineering actually can work. This was a real live thing that somebody wrote out that was actually happened and that they were successful at. And it talks about how they gained access to a computer on a corporate system and were able to gain control of that computer through a remote access tool by multiple calls through the receptionist to human resources to building security. They were able to figure out how to access the names that they needed and all kinds of information. And it's really a fascinating document to read through, give you an example of what social engineering it really is all about. Okay, passwords. Read the textbook. The author does a really good job of discussing the ins and outs of passwords and how to create good ones and different ideas for uh, ways to come up with a strategy that will create, passwords that work for you, because you need to find one that you can do consistently. And realistically, about 8 to 10 characters is long enough for almost anything. You might want to create a stronger one, longer than that, for your banking type things. But 8 to 10 characters, and make it a strong one. Mix up at least at a minimum capital letter, lowercase letter, and some numbers. That's usually good enough for most everything you would want, except possibly some banking stuff. Another thing to think about as far as passwords are concerned, when you're setting up your email client, don't use unencrypted email communications. Make sure you set up your POP or IMAP communications so that they're using SSL, TLS. Sometimes you'll see it referred to as Start TLS. But make sure you don't send your password in the clear when you're at a coffee shop or a McDonald's. And then also, when you're using your browser, you really should try and avoid the remember your login details. I mean, it's fine for simple stuff if you want, but for heaven's sake, don't do it for your banking or even your NetID access onto the university systems, because anybody can, if they have access to that computer, they can go into the browser, go to the settings, and reveal the passwords. I mean, it's a simplistic thing to do. It's not hard at all. Lastly here, I just would encourage you to think about a tool to manage passwords. It's gotten to be a rather onerous task trying to keep track of all of the different passwords and PIN numbers and everything that seem to be required. I found this particular application to be quite useful. It's called KeePass. It's an open source utility. You can have it on your computer at home, or you can store the passwords up on the internet somewhere in a cloud, so you can always have access to it. But it's a very nice tool, simple to use. You simply create a little database of all your different accounts and passwords, and a master password that gains you access to that. So a useful tool. Would encourage you to take advantage of something like that. And that wraps up our discussion on social implications, and we'll see you again soon.